columns at McDill. Put a big split shot on, just like this one right here. This is a, says number 2, but I would say it's probably about a 1/4 ounce. It's a decent sized split shot, but if you put this on a, 1 or 2 out hook with a shrimp, and you set that thing at the bottom of the piling at McDill, there's a good chance you might hook into probably one of the best triple tail you've ever had.
20-pound leader.
Oh yeah.
20-pound
Just,
leader.
they got gill plates like serrated knives, so if he rolls on it, it's a part of the game. It's just like fighting a snook. They had their gill plates are pretty gnarly.
The majority of that fight is almost going to be straight up and down, and they're going to run like crazy this way because if it's a good size one, it's like pulling in a daggone trash can lid.
Mm-hmm. Well, they got 3 tails. So it's
exactly.
3 times. 3 times. Have you ever seen a saltwater Oscar? That's what. A freshwater Oscar in a tank. That's exactly what a triple tail is. It's just a saltwater, bigger, beefier version that tastes way better.
How far do you have your cork up?
So if I'm fishing can buoys, probably a good 3 to 4 feet, because a can buoy, the bottom of them are at least 2 feet. I don't know the exact dimensions on them, but there's probably at least 2 feet there. So if your water column's almost to the top of that, your bobber's going to be floating there. I would say at 3 to 3.5 feet, probably be perfect to keep that bait right where you need it. Or freelining it is perfectly fine. But again, if you have heavy wind and you're trying to fish the buoys and stuff, a bobber will be. Or if you're beginning to do it, you haven't really done it much, a bobber is the easier way to go to try to target them off, at first. And then once you get more comfortable with it, then you can start fishing the live bait, the free line bait. But you got to remember too, you have a chain on most of those buoys. There's a chain that holds them in place. So be mindful of how your bait is drifting, because if it drifts around that buoy and it wraps, or if that fish eats it on the other side of the chain and wraps it, you're not going to get that fish back. They're pretty powerful, so they'll snap you off pretty quick. Any other species? Mackerel? Anyone like mackerel?
Y'all can sit there and think of Spanish mackerel. It's like, oh, it's going.
No,
if
actually,
you're a fresh Spanish mackerel and you cut that bloodline
out.
out, whew, that thing is delicious on the grill with the skin on.
Yep.
A little bit of butter, some of that the lemon pepper. Talking about that on your.
They're not bad fried either.
Yeah,
No,
they're
good
You
fried.
blood them. You
bleed them out
bleed
when you catch them while their heart's still beating. You can pierce the membrane behind their gill, or you can I just cut down the throat. Bleed them out. Once I clean them, so you knock the fillet off the fish, the carcass. Before, normally you would just skin that out. Instead of skinning that out, turn that fish long ways, and what I do is I run my blade straight down the side of the bloodline, and then I turn it out over the skin. So now I'm getting like fish sticks, basically, but I'm getting no bloodline, which is where your really oil, fishy taste comes from. And I have fooled many people, especially my dad. He's always wanted fish, but he always wants my snapper or my grouper. I'm like, okay, yeah, here's a bag of, it's really mackerel, but I'm telling him it's grunts or snapper, and he has no idea, because he loves it, but if I told him what it was, it would be all in his head. He's like, oh, it's a nasty fish. It's really not.
And
It's
don't freeze
all in
it.
how you clean them.
Don't freeze it. You got to eat it
Gets
almost
mushy.
that day. It gets really bad mushy.
There's not a lot of fish I do freeze unless it's coming from offshore. If I catch something inshore, even when reds were able to be kept, I kept maybe one when I did keep one, and I eat it within the next few nights. I just don't like a real fishy, strong flavor. And when you freeze your fish, unless you I know people that fill their bags with water and then they freeze them.
Yep.
Or put buttermilk in it, that will help too, but that's a lot of work. I'm already cleaning
The
all
water
our
is
fish,
actually the
so.
best, because if you guys ever notice, if it gets below freezing in the wintertime, what do the strawberry farmers do? Turn their irrigation on, because it actually saves that strawberry.
Preserves it.
Preserves it. Same thing with the fish.
Yep.
I've got probably close to 20 pounds of tuna sitting in water, frozen in my freezer.
Now, mangrove snapper, I really don't have a problem freezing. I actually just froze some from the Skyway trip the other day. So it stays pretty firm, but a lot of those other fish, they get real mushy after you freeze them and then unthaw them. And then I like sushi, but I don't like mushy fish. It's very odd, so. But yeah, mangrove snapper, not mangrove, but Spanish mackerel. Excellent fish if you bleed it out and clean it without the bloodline. And you can clean it the normal way and try to cut the bloodline out, but if you do the way I was telling you, it's pretty quick, and you get these nice little perfect fish strips off of it. They fry up good, they grill up good. There's a lot of stuff that we can still target that we don't have to worry about what they have closed for now. So,
Yep.
a lot of stuff out there to eat.
Some of the easiest ways are to Spanish mackerel fish. So 9 times out of 10, don't use regular leader line. If you do use regular leader line, you have to get a long shank J hook.
That's
Make sure-
primarily how I do it.
long shank. They also have the extremely lighter weight wire on there. But the one way, and you throw out a live bait because you're sitting there, maybe you're throwing out some cut bait. But when you see those schools on top of the water like crazy, this is honest to God the best lure to ever throw because I've done it every time. Get a treble hook, tie it to either that leader or that mono that you do. Take a McDonald's straw and cut it in 3-inch sections. Take that McDonald's straw and slide it down that leader line to where it hits that hook. Throw it out there and just start reeling. And every time, guaranteed, every cast you throw into that big old school of them, you're gonna get popped. Every time. It is absolutely the craziest thing you ever heard of, but I promise you, before I go shark fishing, that's what I'm looking for. Stop by McDonald's, say, hey, get some straws. Go right there next to the daggone, to the little fountain and grab a whole handful of straws.
Oh, we don't use those straws for that, sir.
Well, there you go. But cut them in, make sure it's 3 inches. Anything smaller, they don't really see. That 3-inch spot.
Are you cutting them and putting them on so it actually gets movement?
Yeah, so what
Like
it is
a broken lure, a broke back lure?
not really. So really, when you cut that, you're going to slide the whole thing over that leader line so the bottom of it's right in that treble hook. So when you're throwing it out there, it's more of that white with the yellow on there that gets it, because as it's coming back, that because the straw's so big, your line's so small, it's really doing this.
Okay.
As it actually, because it really looks like a bait.
So you're
sitting
saying
swimming.
one piece of 3
One
inch.
piece.
Okay, I thought you
One-
meant like cut
nope.
the straw up into 3-inch pieces and put all of it on there.
No,
Okay.
one 3-inch piece, because when you got remember, think about how thick or big those McDonald's straws are. Now you sit there and take the size of your mono or your braid or whatever it is, or your wire, you haul that space in between. It's literally that little straw going like this, back and forth, is what knocks them every time. Now you got to replace that straw a couple times, but it's better than replacing anything else. Mr. Beagle,
Why would you put straws in our ocean?
Get them.
well, you know that
Hey,
it's 3-inch piece. Pick your poison. Go ahead and get you a paper one then. Try the paper. See how long it lasts.
I'll just try that cast net behind you. We'll get them on going home.
Hey, and then make sure you got enough money to come back to Mahoney's and buy another one tomorrow, because that thing's gonna put a whole bunch of holes in that cast net.
Hey, that's no problem.
And then you talking about putting plastic in the water. Really? All the
Cast
plastic.
net? They'll stop that bait. Buy it from the bait man. He sits out in front of Fort Manatee on Sundays.
Oh yeah, every daggone day, every time. But that's the easiest way. Just figure out if you can only use mono, get the long shank hooks. If you guys are sitting there and you want to do something a little different, put a little wire on it. Spoons work really well as well. You get a good gold spoon, throw it out there, or a silver spoon. Those work extremely well. Just remember that sometimes those spoons, the hooks are so big or so much sharper, they'll rip their mouth, because their mouth is extremely fragile. Make sure you just sit there and you do it. I get the smaller ones. Little hook. I make sure they all have the weed guard on them, because it makes it a heck of a lot easier, because you know whatever's going to hit it, it's got some meat on it. Not one of those little ones that are sitting there pecking away. And if you throw it in that school and you let it drift down a little bit, then start reeling, that's where the bigger ones are. And maybe you might get a kingfish. Because if you guys ever noticed, the smaller ones are up top, just like every other. Medium ones are down a little bit further, but you let that thing sink a good bit and then do a slow crank through, beat them up every time. Because that's where I like getting the bigger Spanish, especially when I'm going shark fishing.
You using wire when you're using that?
When the spoons,
With a
yes.
spoon, yeah.
With a spoon, but I'm using the lightest weight wire I can find. And basically it's just like, it's the copper wiring, looks like.
Yeah.
Because when you go to tie it, all I'm doing is
Bimini
forward
twist.
twist. Yep, doing the bimini twist on it. Now when you take those wire snips, make sure you cut that thing as close as you can, and don't grab hold of that wire when you go get that fish and let that thing come down, because you will cut your hand. 100%. Also, if you can, use a swivel, because they even make the smaller swivels. Use a swivel when you sit there and connect your leader line to that wire. That way you don't have to worry about it.
Does it spin the wire and
Yep.
the line and
Twist
tangle
your
up?
Yep. It does not twist that wire at all whatsoever, but it allows that your mono, you don't have to cut your mono off at all. You don't have to retie everything. Just literally snip it, put that little swivel on there, because it's the two-sided one. All right, bimini, eliminate the bottom on your hook, and you're good to go.
If you're gonna use wire too, and you go to make your twist, make your tag end like this long. Because if you make it short, that thing's like a hypodermic needle, and there's so many times I've went to twist it with my thumb and stuck it, I mean deep, in my thumb, and that hurts. So, best thing I could say is I don't use a whole lot of wire unless I'm king mackerel fishing, but still I'll be sitting at home making them up, and if you don't make that tag line long and you get a twist in it, it gets pretty stout, and you stick your thumb on it, it's just gonna slide right in like it's nothing. That's just a little tip to keep your fingers good.
Alright, so Deagle just brought it up. This honestly, well, you know, I wouldn't have the weight on it, but this is wire. It's already pre-made. Mahoney's got them on sale, but I would take this off, and then that way you could put your hook on there. Literally just hook it on. Go right straight to the eyelet, do a regular hook. Or the straw. Pick your poison. But it's literally, I mean, we'll pass it around. It's nothing.